Hello, and welcome to another episode of MBAs Teach Econ. Today, we will discuss a unique type of market called factor markets. A factor market is a market where firms purchase inputs to enable them to produce goods. The most important factors of production include labor, physical capital, and land. Today, we will focus on the labor market, but the mechanics remain the same for other factor markets. It is important to remember, in the labor market, it is the firm who makes up the demand curve, while the suppliers of labor are normal workers like you and me. In the labor market, the price on the y-axis is the price paid for labor. We call this the wage. On the x-axis remains the quantity of labor. The demand curve represents the number of workers that firms demand at a given wage. Similar to other demand curves discussed, this also represents the marginal benefit to the firm of hiring an additional worker. This marginal benefit can be derived with the tools we learned in producer theory. The marginal product of labor, or MPL, tells us how many additional units of the final good the next laborer would allow the firm to produce. If we simply multiply this MPL by the price of the final good, this would show the additional revenue the firm would bring in by selling the extra units the worker would produce, or the marginal benefit to the firm. We call the MPL times price of the final good the value of MPL, or VMPL. The labor demand curve represents the VMPL to the firm because firms will continue hiring until VMPL equals wage. Or said another way, the benefit of hiring the next worker equals the cost of hiring the next worker. The labor supply curve is determined by the workers. Workers must undertake the same calculation and will continue to supply labor until the marginal benefit of the next hour of work equals the marginal cost of the next hour of work. We call this the labor-leisure trade-off. The marginal benefit of the next hour of work is the wage. Because this is what they are paid for that hour of work, while the marginal cost is what they have to give up in order to work, or the marginal benefit of leisure. Workers will continue to supply labor until wage equals the marginal benefit of the next hour of leisure. Like every market, there are many factors that shift the supply and demand curve. The demand curve shifts if the price of the final good changes. That's because it would change VMPL. The demand curve also shifts when new technology becomes available to the firm. If the technology increases MPL or is labor complementary, it shifts the demand curve outward. If the demand curve reduces MPL, then it is labor saving, and it shifts the labor demand curve inward. The labor supply curve shifts for three reasons. The first is a population change. The more people there are, the more workers, which creates greater supply. The second is changes in worker preferences and tastes. If you decide to occupy Wall Street, you supply less labor, shifting the supply curve to the left. And finally, changes in opportunity costs. If you get a better job offer in a different industry, you may consider supplying less labor to the current market in order to avoid this higher opportunity cost. Just like every other market we have studied, the labor market is in equilibrium when the two curves intersect. Because at this point, quantity demanded of labor equals the quantity supplied of labor. This concludes this lesson on factor markets with MBAs Teach Econ. We hope to see you soon.